Glenn, I want to dive now into the foreign policy portion of our discussion here. Joe Biden seems hell-bent on sending even more and more money overseas. He just asked for $24 billion additional dollars to be sent to Ukraine to continue this very, very dangerous vertical escalation proxy war. Glenn, break down this latest news and the significance of the danger here during this transition period.
I honestly don't think we've ever seen anything like this. I can't think of a historical analogy where a president whose party is resoundingly rejected in an election uses the lame duck session not for anything urgent or time sensitive, but to simply pour fuel on a fire of a war that even its initial advocates have acknowledged can no longer be won. And especially when Trump ran on a platform of resolving this war peacefully and diplomatically, precisely because he knows Ukraine can't win. All it's doing is resulting in the death of hundreds of thousands of people and the destruction of Ukraine that the American taxpayer will pay to rebuild. To watch Biden not just send more money out, but authorize the use of ATACMS missiles to strike deep inside Russia when that requires the active involvement of U.S. or NATO military and other escalatory acts seems very much designed to prevent the next administration, the Trump administration, from fulfilling the promise it made to the American people that they accepted of resolving this war diplomatically. And it's incredibly dangerous. Russia has the largest nuclear stockpile on the planet. They regard Ukraine as their neighboring country and therefore of vital interest to their national security. And Washington has been playing this bizarre game from the start where they seem to view the risks as trivial and are willing to trifle with them for very trivial reasons.
Well, yeah, and I just the DC warmongers that have been pushing this further and further towards whatever this is, and it's bad, they're now applauding, saying finally we're able to use long-range American-made missiles into the interior of Russia. Let me ask you from your reporting, Glenn, how are the Russian politicians and the Russian people viewing this? Because we never get the Russian side of the story in American media. Are they viewing this as an act of aggression, as they should, by the way?
Of course. It would be like asking, would the United States view it as an act of aggression if the United States were actively collaborating with some other country, not just to provide weapons to strike inside the United States, but use its military to guide those missiles and to target using their intelligence services where they should land and what they should explode. I think one of the things that has been most lost because of how awash we are in propaganda is the fact that Ukraine is the most sensitive border spot for Russia. It's the place that was used to invade Russia twice during the 20th century in both world wars that resulted in the deaths of tens of millions of Russian citizens. I actually interviewed a German politician, a really interesting woman, Sarah Wagenknecht, who has long been on the left, but is a vehement opponent of German support for the war. And she talked about the generational psychological trauma for the Russians of seeing German troops and German tanks, rather, rolling eastward once again into Russia, toward the Russian border. This has been something, this war, that has been extremely provocative toward Russia. And the problem is that we hear that Putin is a totalitarian leader. No one challenges him. He has a lot of political pressure, primarily on his nationalistic right, that has been critical, believing that he's shown too much restraint about NATO involvement in Ukraine. And he has a lot of pressure to respond very aggressively to this seriously escalatory policy of now having the U.S. and NATO directly bomb inside Russia.
Yeah, at some point, somebody has to articulate what exactly success looks like here. And just these platitudes and abstractions, punishing Putin or making sure Ukraine wins. We have a minute remaining here, Glenn. Am I correct in saying that that Russia is taking more territory as months go by, and that the Ukrainians are losing more and more ground? Is that correct?
Yeah, nobody doubts that the Russian front line is expanding westward. Nobody doubts that Ukraine has zero chance. The problem is NATO defined victory from the start in a very unrealistic way, expelling every Russian troop from every inch of Ukrainian soil, including Crimea, and the Russians would never permit that. And now the U.S. knows that's the outcome, and they're going to have to accept the humiliation of defeat.
Including Crimea. I mean, first of all, Crimea is rightfully Russia's. Okay, that's where Russian wine comes from. It's where their navy was centered in World War II. I mean, these people are pathologically insane.